All right, so DW-8000 is working, but there's still some things that I need to take care of. So one of the things is the buttons are not very responsive, so I'm probably just gonna have to like replace the switches underneath these buttons, which is fine because I do have like a lot of spares, thankfully. The other thing that I'm noticing is that on the headphone jack right here, only the left side is coming out and not the right side. So something's going on. It could be as simple as a soldering joint that got loose or something a little more complicated. All right, so the headphones and all the other outputs, including the MIDI, is on this circuit board right here. So I'm just gonna carefully trying to get this thing out first and take a look at it and see what I can spot. I removed the board and honestly it looks pretty good. I ended up resoldering or reflowing these joints. Reflowing just means that I'm just kind of like reheating them and making sure that they're making a nice connection. But I think the connection was pretty good to begin with. These guys that connect what I assume is to the rest of the board are fine. So what I am left to believe that maybe the problem is not on this circuit board, but rather elsewhere on here. I removed everything from the top side of the board, so this guy is ready for a nice cleaning. And in the meantime, I was able to kind of take a look at all of the circuit boards here. Everything looks pretty good. I mean, everything looks in great shape. I mean, of course, I would like to replace the switches that are underneath these buttons, these guys right here, which, as I said, were kind of like sticky a little bit. But I do have some spares, so that's kind of nice. And the sliders, I mean, I kind of looked through it. I mean, I want to clean them a little bit better, but I mean, in general, they look pretty decent to me, like on the inside from what I can tell. So I mean, I'll probably just kind of spray some contact cleaner and try to like kind of give them a nice clean here. So I removed all the buttons and kind of sprayed and thoroughly cleaned the circuit boards, both in the front and in the back. And I also, every time, you know, like I'm always like double checking connection and make sure that there's nothing that looks a little suspicious, but everything looks really good so far. But before I solder the new buttons in, I want to take a look at the volume slider right here. And I think I'm going to open it up and just kind of carefully clean it. Because as I said, I'm a little suspicious of this guy, that maybe this is the reason why I'm only getting one channel of audio. So, okay, so you want to be really careful with this guy, mostly because these guys are really hard to come by, and especially the volume, because it's actually like a two. It's got like the left and right. It's like a two strip, I guess, slider. So the way you open this up is there's this little, I don't know if you can see it, and hopefully this is you know, somewhat in focus, but there's this little legs that are kind of like clamped down, and with a screwdriver, you just want to like, with a flathead screwdriver, I should say, you want to like kind of carefully kind of pry them back until the whole thing assembly comes open. I made a note here. I just kind of put like a bunch of black marker here to delineate that the side with the black marker is the one that matches with this 4 little feet on here, while the other side does not have that. And it says Japan, the other side. Okay, so that's another good way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this down here and very carefully kind of lift it up. And I want to be very careful because when I lift it up, this little slider is going to want to like pop out. And I want to be very, very careful to note exactly which way this slider actually fits in here in the assembly. So I'm just going to put this right here. And I'm just going to note that this slider right here, if we kind of like tilt it up, I don't know if you can see it, it's probably like really, really dark, but it's got like 2 sets of little brushes here, and these little brushes basically correspond to the right side of the slider, so that this guy moves up and down like so. And if you look very, very carefully, once again, I don't know if you can even see it, like given the amount of light here, you can see that there's little kind of tracks where these brushes have been like kind of obviously been sliding up and down for decades. So I'm just gonna put this off to the side right now. And what I'm gonna do, I'm very, very carefully gonna take, I have, I don't know if you can see here, this is like isopropyl alcohol. This is like very pure, is basically 99.9% pure. And I'm just kind of spray it on a little bit of Q-tip and spray it a little bit on top of it. And very carefully, I'm just going to start cleaning these guys out so that they're nice and clear. And you don't want to rub too much because, you know, there's like little carbon traces on there, and, you know, you don't want to accidentally get rid of the carbon, but you just want to kind of like get rid of any debris or any kind of loose gunk and other assorted dirt that might be in there. Also, sometimes what you can do is very, very gently, because you don't want to snap them off or else you're in trouble. It's just kind of bend them upwards a little bit, just because of the fact that way they'll make like a little bit tighter contacts. But as I said, you want to be extremely, extremely careful with all this stuff, because you can very, very easily damage the just like very delicate parts. And this is kind of like a bit of a last resort way of doing it, because the best way to do it would be just to get like a replacement brand new slider. All right, so everything's being cleaned up. So anyway, so these guys are now lined up with the tracks here. So I'm just gonna put them here, lift this guy up, and here, maybe it might be easier if I just kind of put this guy in here first and then just do it upside down, hoping that everything goes back the way it's supposed to. So with the slider reassembled, I'm ready to kind of solder it back in. I mean, as I said, this is kind of like a bit of a last resort way of doing things, and I don't recommend it. I really don't. If you can get your hands on a brand new slider like this, which is a looks like it's like a 10K slider times 2, because it's like stereo. If you can find this guy with this kind of pin configuration, then you're much better off than doing what I did. So don't necessarily look at this as like the best way of handling it. Okay, so the slider is soldered back firmly in place. So this guy's not going anywhere. I just hope it still works. What can I say? The other guys I cleaned pretty thoroughly, so hopefully they'll be okay. So now I need to put the buttons back in. And I mentioned this on the DW-8000 videos, but get yourself the good quality Omron. Here, if you can kind of see, these guys have like the blue thing, and they say Omron on the backside. You probably can't really see it, because a lot of people on eBay, especially, I noticed, like they tend to sell these cheaper guys right here. These are all like black, and these guys are kind of wobbly, and normally these guys are just fine for like, you know, membrane or anything where like the button, like, you know, does not have to be exactly in place. But on the DW-6000 and 8000, unfortunately, if you use these guys that are like considerably cheaper, I mean, they're like probably like 1/10 the price of these guys, then the buttons kind of sit all weird and crooked, and it just looks like crap. So definitely, if you're gonna replace the switches, just kind of make sure that you got like these ones made by Omron with the blue top, and these guys have a lot tighter tolerance, so they don't really move around as much, and that's exactly what you need for the buttons to sit nice and straight. So this is highly, highly recommended, and I just wanted to mention it one more time because I see a lot of these crappy all black ones on eBay, and I bet there's a lot of people that just buy these and they work. It's just that then the buttons sit all weird and crooked. So get yourself the blue ones. So all the buttons have been replaced, and now I just need to put the button covers on it, and then these guys are ready to go back inside the case. I also sprayed a bunch of contact cleaner on these guys, and the volume button we clean by hand, and hopefully this guy works still. So yeah, I mean, everything is looking pretty good. So I'm kind of hoping that we are ready to go back into the case with all of this stuff, and keeping my fingers crossed as always that this is actually going to be working and that I didn't screw something up in the process. So there's a couple of things that I need to do to the top plastic cover here. So the first thing I need to do is I replaced the felt here, just kind of like glued it in place, but there's no hole for like the little sliders to go through, so I'm just gonna go in with my little handy razor blade and just kind of cut the holes. And then the other thing I need to do is this little windows. This is kind of the see-through windows where like the LED displays show through. I just want to kind of wipe them nice and clean, because once this goes back in, you won't be able to like clean it from the other side. So if I did my calculations correctly, if I did everything right, I should only have 4 screws left, which correspond to the pitch bend. I'm gonna hold off to put back in. I would say like one of the hardest things to do on these keyboards, and maybe it's the way I'm like kind of working, is putting the keyboard, the key bed back in, because it's a real pain in the butt. There's like 2 screws here, 2 screws there, 4 screws at the bottom, and everything needs to be lined up just right. And then there's like these ground connections that you have to make sure to wire back properly. But with that said, I mean, I think everything's back in. Everything lines up here, so that's a good sign. So what I need to do is I need to just kind of make sure everything is connected over here on the main processor board, and then fire it up and make sure that I didn't screw something up by doing all this cleaning and changing the buttons and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully I haven't. As always, fingers crossed. While the DW-8000 is kind of sitting there almost fully completed, we have like this pitch bend, and I mean, it's not terrible. It's a little dirty. It's like really filthy. Mostly I just want to like take a look because like it's a little loose. I want to see if I can kind of like maybe tighten things up. We had like a similar issue with the DW-8000, although the DW-8000 I think was like much worse. But I don't know, this could be a little tighter. It makes me wonder if maybe there's like something that's kind of cracked somewhere in there. So I'm gonna carefully, first I'm gonna like clean it up a little bit, then I'm gonna open it up and take a closer look and see a little bit what might be happening here. Kind of carefully pop this guy out, and it should come out of here. And then, you know, technically the same thing can be done with this guy, that I can just kind of very, very carefully bend the plastic a little bit to get it to pop out of this hole right here. So I'm just gonna take this guy out for now. There you go. Okay, so we got this assembly out, and now I'm just gonna see if I can kind of like tighten these guys and just kind of make sure that the 2 little pieces parts here, there's nothing broken off. Tighten up this little metal tabs right here, and kind of clean everything. Put like some spray some content cleaner in there, clean like all the plastic around it, and then put everything back together and see if that does the trick. What I ended up doing is kind of doing like a bit of a rebuild on this guy. I mean, I just kind of tighten everything up, those little tabs, so these guys are sitting nice and flush. And, you know, and just kind of re-greased everything, put in the same type of grease, the lithium-based grease that I put on the key bed. But I think this guy is done, so I'm gonna put it back. Pitch bend is back in. The only other thing I'd like to do maybe is like a little bit of like kind of some cable management, because I mean this thing is like a total mess. I got me these little guys. I don't know if you can see, they're like little sticky things. So usually I end up putting one right here, and that kind of like takes care of these guys. And then I'm just gonna kind of go around. I might put one in here, and also I might end up doing something with the battery with this guy, because maybe having the battery hardwired to the power supply is not such a great idea. It's looking a little cleaner. I put like this guy here, I put like this guy here, and then I added this guy here to kind of hold the battery in place. I mean, it's not like the greatest, most elegant way of doing it. I usually drill a couple of holes right here and then just kind of mount the battery socket right in here. But as we saw on this repair, like when I needed to then swap just this board independently of the power supply, I had to bring them both because they were connected. So I'm going to try this for now. What I really want to do next is actually kind of hook up the keyboard to my main interface, load up some proper sound, and really just give it like a thorough testing, because I haven't really done that yet. And I just want to leave it running for like a couple of hours, make sure that like the power supply is not going to give me some more problems, make sure that the memory is all like staying in place. So, you know, before I kind of like close up the case for good, I want to just give it like a thorough testing. The other thing that I need to do some research is this headphone output, which I guess like well, I mean it's in here behind this case, and I mean you can kind of see the plug right there. I mean, I cleaned it thoroughly. I don't think it's like a contact thing. I think something else might be going on, and it's very possible that there's like the headphone amplifier is shot. And I don't know where that is exactly. I mean, I suspect that it's somewhere in here, you know, but I don't know. Like, so I need to do some online research, look at the schematics, try to get like a better sense of what the headphone signal path is, because I think like the left and right outputs are working fine. So I don't think that there's anything that has to do with like the voicing or like the way that like the audio is being transmitted through the instrument. I don't think that's it. I think what's happening is that either the headphone amplifier circuit is shot, and it's probably like some sort of like op amp somewhere that needs to be replaced, which is not that big of a deal, or maybe like some loose connection, although I don't really see any sort of loose connections in here. So well, as I said, like, let me hook it up, fire it up, and see what happens. All right, so I got the DW-8000 all hooked up. I loaded up brand new set of bank, you know, with a bunch of presets, and everything seems to be working fine. There is a couple of negative things. First of all, there's the headphone thing that I would like to figure out. And secondly, the parameter LED works, but the program LED is kind of like a little intermittent. It's so either I kind of mess something up or the switch is a little funky. So either way, I might need to like kind of reopen it up and kind of investigate a little bit why this guy is not staying latched on like it's supposed to, like the light's supposed to stay on like that, and instead when I let go of the button, the light turns off, which is not great. But I mean, other than that, like, I mean, you know, like the like the various kind of like buttons work. This guy works fine. The arpeggiator works. These guys are working as expected. The volume works. Pitch bend works great. Let me see here. I'm just gonna take a pair of headphones, put them next to the iPhone, and hopefully you can kind of hear a little bit of what might be going on here. Let me just kind of play something here. Okay, so hopefully you were able to hear some of that. So after doing some research and kind of talking to a few people, like, I mean, the general consensus is that there's probably like two things happening. Either some of the capacitors on the part of the board that's affecting the headphones are fucked up, or more than likely it's the op amp that is driving the headphones that is not working. So what I did is I ordered a brand new op amp. This is what this thing looks like. It's just this tiny little thing. It's like, I guess, like a single inline, what is it, like an 8-pin or 7-pin, something like that, I think. Okay, so I had the bright idea of trying to work with the keyboard kind of like upside down, I guess, of sorts. Usually, like, that part is on the bottom, and then I have this portion of the keyboard flipped up. But I thought, since I'm mostly going to be operating around this area, and because the keyboard is such a pain in the butt to kind of remove, and I need to remove it to get to the circuit boards that I need to get to, I thought, well, let me try this way. So what I did is I just kind of put like a couple like pieces of wood down there so that the keys are not being affected, and hopefully this should allow me to kind of work a little bit more in a more civilized way, because up until now, trying to like kind of get the keyboard out and all this kind of stuff when this guy's vertical is just like such a pain in the butt. So okay, so I'm gonna start from the simpler problem and then work my way up to the headphones. So the switch in question is this guy right here, and the problem is that this LED right here is not staying on, and it's kind of intermittent, which corresponds to this guy right here, if you can see, LED number 4. I think the LED is fine because it does turn on. The solder looks fine. So the only other thing I can think of is maybe like the switch is just not a good switch. So I'm probably just gonna pop this guy out and put a new switch in, and maybe I'll just kind of reflow just in case there's like some invisible kind of cracks or something like that in there. But I mean, everything else looks pretty good for this LED that goes here and then here and here. I mean, I don't see any real problems there. So I replaced the switch, and I also resoldered the LED just in case there were like some broken traces or something like that. I mean, not broken traces, but broken solder. So that should take care of the LED issue. So I was able to lift the board out. I would not recommend doing this. This is just me being really lazy and not wanting to like kind of detach all the other boards and unplug things and do this properly. But I'm lazy. So anyway, the chip, the IC that is supposedly the op amp that controls the headphones is this guy right here, which I showed you I have a replacement for. I'm also thinking about maybe replacing a couple of these like capacitors while I'm here, just to be on the safe side. And I don't know if I need to worry about that guy, but you know, definitely these two guys, maybe this guy. So I'm really excited because I have a brand new toy. This is a desoldering gun, and so many people have told me you need one of these, because if you're trying to use, you know, the solder sucker that I've been using all along, you're just in a world of hurt. So I'm very excited about using this guy for the first time, and I'm going to show you a little bit like how it works. I mean, basically, what you have to do is just kind of position this. It's got like a heated element at the tip, and I just need to like position it on top of the little pin that I need to desolder, and let it do its thing, and then just and look at that. It comes off. Let's try it again. It's a little tricky to kind of put it on the thing. Look at that. It's nice and clean. Alright, let's see. Let's see if this thing worked and how well did it work. Let's see here. Is this gonna come out? Look at that. It just pops out magically. This is crazy. Sorry if it's a little bit out of focus. Focus. There we go. Wow. Okay, I'm sold. Desoldering gun, must have, because this would have been a real pain in the butt to do with the solder sucker, and it just popped out like nothing. So what I ended up doing is removing the op amp and a couple of these capacitors. I removed another capacitor that was over here, and possibly this guy right here that I've already unsoldered. So these two capacitors, let me see here. The values are 4.7 rated at 50 volts. 50 volts seems excessive, but those two are like 4.7 microfarads, and then the one that came out of here in 100 microfarad at 16 volts. And then this guy right here, I don't even know if I really need to replace it, but what the hell. So this is a 47 microfarad at 16 volts. So yeah, I'm just gonna set out to resolder those two things, or those four things, or five things, or whatever, and then reassemble everything else. I mean, there's a couple of other capacitors that I could be replacing if I really wanted to. I don't know if it's necessary. I mean, they look fine, and I'm not even sure if they're really related to the headphone amp, which I believe is all in this general area. I got everything back in. I ended up replacing a bit more of these electrolytic capacitors, although honestly I don't think it was necessary at all. I think that the main culprit is this guy right here, so that's been replaced, and now I gotta put it all back together and see what happens, and hopefully it was the up amp all along. So the DW-8000 is back into one piece. It's powered on, the lights are on. That's always a great sign. I have the headphones plugged in. Let's play some notes here. I'm just gonna put the headphones next to the camera. Hopefully you guys can hear. It sounds nice and clean. Let's see. That's a weird preset. So that's cool. I mean, everything sounds good coming out of both headphones. Of course, I double checked and triple checked everything. So I think that fixed the headphone output and put this unit back in full working order. So what was it? My money would be on this guy, the op amp that we replaced. I think this guy was bad, and I think like just kind of changing it for a new one did the trick. There were a couple of those other electrolytic capacitors that are replaced. I really don't think that those guys were the culprits. I mean, they look good, they're not swollen, they're not like looking weird or burnt or anything like that. So I think this was kind of probably like overkill to change the capacitors. I think that just replacing the little op amp chip right here is what did the trick. So having said that, I think this guy is officially 100% working perfectly. So I'm like really thrilled about this. I think it's time for a jam. All right, I can't believe we got the Korg DW-8000 to be fully functional again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video to find out what the cat will drag in next.